What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are having a great summer. It's hard to believe we're already in late August, and at this point the NFL season is just over a week away, which makes me super excited to be back with some NFL content. And for this video, guys, we're gonna be doing the over-under on the win totals of every NFL team. So I've been looking at different websites. Right now, this is VegasInsider.com. Different sports books have different projections on how many wins they think each NFL team will have. For now, we're gonna be using VegasInsider.com, and we're gonna go through every team. Here it's in alphabetical order, and we're gonna try to predict if these teams will go over or under their projected win totals. So definitely make sure to comment your guys' opinions on this. Some of these teams are tough to guess. Like I don't know what to expect from a lot of these teams. Lots of offseason moves, of course, as with every offseason. Super excited about this upcoming NFL season in just over a week. So with that being said, guys, let's get into the over-unders of all 32 NFL teams. All right, guys, so this is gonna start in alphabetical order with the Arizona Cardinals, who are projected at 5.5 wins. Now, this is gonna be all about, I think, Kyler Murray and 4th overall pick Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, they got some weapons. The Cardinals are a young team, but I think if that duo is clicking, I think if Marvin Harrison becomes a star right out the gate and Kyler Murray has a nice full bounce back season, I could see them winning over 5.5 games. So I'm going to be optimistic on the Cardinals. I think they win over 5.5, which moves us on to the Atlanta Falcons at 8.5 wins. Of course, the offseason addition of Kirk Cousins should really help this offense improve, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. Can this offense and the defense improve enough to win that division? Not a great division. I think it's going to come down to the Falcons and the Bucks, but I think the addition of Kirk Cousins will unlock this offense enough with Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Bijan Robinson's going to have an even better year. I think it's just going to keep getting better. The guy's a stud. So I'm going to say the Falcons go over 8.5 wins. I think they win 9 or 10 games and win the NFC South this season. Okay, so the Baltimore Ravens are coming off a #1 seed in the AFC and a tough home loss in the AFC Championship, but now they have Derrick Henry, which is a huge addition. Lamar Jackson will continue to be great, of course. 10.5 wins, really tough AFC North division, of course, but I still think the Ravens will go over this. I just think they're too dynamic on both ends. Despite losing their great defensive coordinator, Mike Macdonald, to the Seahawks, I still think the Ravens will retool, still be a great team, and get over that 10.5. Okay, the Buffalo Bills are interesting because they lost Stefon Diggs, of course, via trade. Now they kind of have these new weapons, so we'll see who Josh Allen kind of establishes as his premier targets. But at the end of the day, it's still Josh Allen. I think their run game really improved last year with James Cook, and I think they have a solid defense. So I think the Bills will find a way to get over 9.5 wins. I think they're definitely a playoff team, and with an MVP caliber, perennial year in, year out MVP caliber player like Josh Allen, I think the Bills will at least get 10 wins, which takes us to the Carolina Panthers. Now, I think this is all going to be about how Bryce Young bounces back from year one under new head coach Dave Canales, who did a great job with Baker Mayfield last year. So it's all going to come down to that. Will they win over 4.5 games? This one's tough. This is... I'm gonna say they go under. I think they win like 4 games, 3 games. I think Bryce Young makes I think he makes an improvement for sure. I think they'll do better, but I just don't think the Panthers have enough of weapons on offense or defense to really be close to winning a ton of games. So I'm going to go under on the Panthers 4.5 win total, and the Bears at 7.5 up next. That surprises me. That's a little bit lower than I would have thought on the over-under. I know they have a rookie quarterback, but they also have the rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, of course. 1st overall pick, great weapons they've surrounded him with. Great offseason for the Bears, of course, drafting Rome Odunze. Still have DJ Moore, who had his best season as a pro last year. Keenan Allen. So this is a really good team around Caleb Williams. It's just going to all come down to how he does out the gate. I think the Bears are going to win more than 7.5 games. I think they could be a playoff team. So I'm going to go over on the Chicago Bears. Okay, so next up we have the Cincinnati Bengals at 9.5 wins. Joe Burrow's back. They re-signed T. Higgins. Jamar Chase is there. So just that trio, the Bengals, it's just good to have Joe Burrow back because I think he automatically makes them a contender. And I think with a healthy Joe Burrow, the Bengals easily win over 9.5 games. I'm going with the over. The Cleveland Browns are a tough team to predict because it's all going to be about how Deshaun Watson does. They have Amari Cooper, who had a really good year last year. They added Jerry Jeudy. The defense is still great. So I think the Browns, if Deshaun Watson is solid, I think the Browns should be able to win 8 games or more. I'm going to go over on the Browns, but they're tough. It's a tough team to predict the wins on because we got to see how Deshaun Watson does. So I'm still going to go over on the 7.5, but it's a wait and see with the Cleveland Browns. So the Dallas Cowboys have a 9.5 over under. They're bringing back a very similar team to last year. They still haven't re-signed Dak or Micah Parsons long-term, but those two are still back for this year. They just re-signed CeeDee Lamb to a long-term extension. I think we're going to see a similar Cowboys team, at least in the regular season. And they did bring back Zeke Elliott. They're just signing Dalvin Cook today at the making of this video. So I think in the regular season, the Cowboys will still be pretty successful. I'm going to go over on their 9.5 wins. So the Denver Broncos are at 4.5 wins. They announced Bo Nix is going to be their starter, moving on from the Russell Wilson era. How will Bo Nix work with Sean Payton? They lost Jerry Jeudy. I think the Broncos are kind of a project right now. I think Bo Nix will be good or has potential to be a good quarterback, but it just feels like they're a long way away. It might be a tough season in Denver. 4.5 wins is not a lot, but I might go under. I could see the Broncos having one of the worst records in the league, unfortunately. I'm going to go under with the Denver Broncos. The Detroit Lions at 9.5 wins. This is an easy one. I'm just going to go straight up over. I mean, you're bringing back a squad that just got to the NFC Championship, was up big at halftime, almost got to their first Super Bowl. You bring back Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. This team's electrifying. Jahmyr Gibbs. This team's only going to get better. They had a really good draft, really good offseason. I could see the Lions having the best record in the NFC, so I'm easily going to go over the 9.5 on the Lions. I really like the over-under on the Packers in terms of going over. 8.5 wins for the Packers. They just got to the divisional round, gave the 49ers a tough challenge, and it required a 49ers comeback for the Packers and rookie QB Jordan Love not to get to the NFC Championship. It was tough losing Aaron Jones, but they bring in Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love, big extension. He's going to be a star. They're going to get even better, and I think build off last season, so I definitely think the Packers will go over their 8.5 wins. It's like 3 in a row now. The Houston Texans at 8.5 wins. I think that's an easy over. I think the Texans, they broke out last year with CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans. Amazing additions to the team last year in year one. Year one could not have gone better for the Texans. They won 10 games, won the AFC South. They add Stephon Diggs. They get Joe Mixon. Defense gets better. Oh man, the Texans, I think, could go way over 8.5 wins. That's an easy one for me. Texans over 8.5. I'm in shock that the Colts are only 1 win lower than the Texans in the projections. You know, the Colts are going to be interesting because Anthony Richardson's back. He played 5 games last year, looked really good. So I think it's going to be a huge thing to see how he performs in year 2. And then Jonathan Taylor, I think he'll have a bounce back year. He's still one of the elite running backs in the league. It's just the question for the Colts is, do they have enough to compete with the other teams in the AFC South? And are they ready right now to kind of be a playoff team? They were close last year. So if Anthony Richardson's really good, I could see it. But right now, I'm leaning toward the under for the Colts just because I don't know too much about what to expect. It's a young team, young QB, but they have potential. For now, I'm going to go under on the 7.5 with the Colts, which brings us to the Jacksonville Jaguars, my Jaguars. And I am surprised, of course, it's hard not to be a little subjective here, but 7.5 to match the Colts over-under, I disagree with that. Even in a down year last year for the Jags, where they were 8-3 at one point, but ended up 9-8, they still did win 9 games. And I think Trevor Lawrence and the team will be better this year. They were really sloppy last year, especially in the red zone. I think they're going to hopefully clean up some of their mistakes at least. I think the Jaguars will be even better than last year. I think they could be a playoff team. I'm excited about what they do, so I definitely think they go over 7.5 wins. I think that looks a little low on Vegas Insider, so I'm going to take the over rather easily. And that brings us to the 2-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs at 11.5 wins. And for the Chiefs, last year was also a down year, but all they did was, just win the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, yeah, they're a great team, of course. So in their quest to go for a three-peat, do they win more than 11 games like last year? I think they do, because I think that last year could go down as one of the worst years of Patrick Mahomes' career, and they still just messed around and won the Super Bowl. So I think with the additions of Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, even though he might be hurt for the first few weeks, still Travis Kelce, Mahomes, like, this offense will look better this year. I think they'll air it out, open the field once again like a couple years ago in the Tyreek Hill days. I think the Chiefs win 12, 13, 14 games. I think they have a better year than last year, so they go over their 11.5. The Las Vegas Raiders have Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback. I love Minshew mania. I'm excited to see how he does. They still have Davante Adams, drafted Brock Bowers, so I like some of the stuff they're doing, and I think Antonio Pierce could be a really good coach, but there's still, and Max Crosby, of course, anchoring the defense, but there's still a lot of questions with the Raiders. Run game, defensive questions, offensive questions. A lot of people don't expect the Raiders to be one of the better teams, actually kind of the opposite, kind of more in that lower tier. 5.5 wins, that's kind of low though. I still see the Raiders as being a better team than the Broncos and the Panthers and Patriots probably. So I'm gonna actually go over on the 5.5 wins. I could see maybe Davante Adams getting traded at some point in the season if it doesn't go right for them, but I think the Raiders have a good enough squad to get over 5.5 wins. It's a new era for the Chargers as they bring in national championship winning coach Jim Harbaugh. Now they have Justin Herbert back from that injury last year that caused him to miss like the last third of the season. Herbert's one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks, I believe, and this offense I still think is really good. Losing Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler was huge, but they have a really good O-line. I think the Chargers have they're going to have a much improved defense with Jim Harbaugh, and they just have a lot of really good players. I could see the Chargers having a very good season. They're one of those wait and see teams I'm excited to see. Like, I could see them going from, they could be a contender and also like maybe miss the playoffs if things don't go right. I think 7.5 is kind of low, so I'm gonna go over on the Chargers, and that brings us to the next Los Angeles team, or the other Los Angeles team, the Rams, who are also at 7.5, and I think both these teams easily go over. I know Aaron Donald retired for the Rams, but last year they make the playoffs. Stafford showed us that he's still a really good NFL quarterback. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, terrific receiving duo. Kyren Williams, breakout running back last year. I think he's gonna have another great year this year. Sean McVay, we believe in Sean McVay. And then losing Aaron Donald, one of the greatest defensive players of all time, retiring, that's tough, but they used their first round pick to get defensive end Jared Verse from Florida State. Great draft pick. They add Tre'Davious White and they add Darius Williams in the secondary. So I like the Rams additions. I think they'll be solid on defense, really good on offense, and I think they'll be like last year. I think they'll be a playoff caliber team. Easy over for both LA squads. Okay, so the Miami Dolphins have another team that has a surprising over-under. Like 8.5 wins seems kind of low for me. I know there's questions about the Dolphins in terms of playoffs and against the best teams in cold weather and whatnot, but 8.5, I mean, this is a team, Mike McDaniel, Tua, and Tyreek. That trio produces one of the best offenses in the league. This is a team that thinks they can contend. I think this is a playoff team. I'm going over on the 8.5 for the Dolphins. So 5.5 is the over-under for the Minnesota Vikings. Really tough loss, losing J.J. McCarthy for the season. But so this, I think with Sam Darnold starting, maybe there's people who think that the Vikings are going to be a really low win team. I'm not saying, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team or anything, but I still think this is a very solid offense with Kevin O'Connell, of course, Justin Jefferson with the new contract. Jordan Addison was a really good rookie last year, and T.J. Hawkinson will be back soon, hopefully from injury. I know we don't know a lot to expect, what to expect from Sam Darnold, but at the end of the day, I still think we could see a very solid offense with the addition of Aaron Jones as well. I think the Vikings will be in a lot of shootouts, and I think their offense will let them win at least 6 games. I'm going to go over on the Minnesota Vikings. Might be a tough season in Foxborough for first-year head coach Gerard Mayo. You know, I think very good draft pick with Drake May, but I just think you look at the weapons, running back, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson's really good, but you're talking about receiver weapons, defensive questions. There's just so many questions about the Patriots right now who look like they're definitely in almost full-blown rebuild mode. So the 4.5 on the Patriots, they have a really tough schedule too. I'm gonna actually go under, unfortunately. It might be a tough season in Foxborough, so I'm gonna say for this year, the Patriots go under 4.5. The New Orleans Saints at 6.5. Now that's also low. I think the Saints, I think they're going to be similar to the last year or two. I think they'll be a solid, hovering around 500 team, but I think their floor is better than 6.5. You know, you have Chris Olave. It's a good, you know, you got a good team. You got solid defense. It's a good all-around team. Of course, questions with Derek Carr and how far he can take them. I'm not sure how high their ceiling is, but I think the floor for the Saints most years is above 6.5 wins. I'll stick with that. I'm going to say the Saints win over 6.5. The New York Football Giants, 5.5 wins over under. Daniel Jones, this is the make or break year for Danny Dimes and Brian Daboll possibly as well. So, man, but there's just too many questions. The loss of Saquon Barkley. I love the draft pick of Malik Neighbors, but I still don't think they have enough weapons. Defensive questions. I think it could be a tough year for the Giants. I'm leaning toward the under on the 5.5, and I think they'll go under, so I'll go with under 5.5 for the Giants. The next New York team, the New York Jets at 8.5. I think it's going to be all about how Aaron Rodgers bounces back, if he has a healthy year, if they can protect him, and I think they will do a better job this year. The Jets O-line, they did a good job really improving that offensive line, and I still believe Aaron Rodgers, I think his best MVP days are behind him, but I still think he has some good football left. I think he can have a good year. Love the addition of Mike Williams to add to Garrett Wilson on the receiving core, so I think the Jets will have a good year. If all goes well, Aaron Rodgers is healthy, the team stays healthy, I think they can be a playoff team. I'm going to go over on the 8.5 for the Jets, which brings us to the Philadelphia Eagles at 9.5. I think this is a team that will also bounce back. I think the Eagles, they had a tough year last year. They had new coordinators. I think there's going to be a little more continuity this year. I think Jalen Hurts will have a bounce back year. They'll figure it out. They've had good additions. Saquon Barkley, good draft as well. So I think their defense will be much improved. A defense that looked really bad the second half of last year going into the playoffs. I think they'll bounce back. I think the Eagles will be back to an NFC contender. I'm going to go over on the 9.5. Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they're arguably in the toughest division in the NFL in the AFC North. You got the Ravens, you got the Bengals, you got the Browns. So the Steelers, man, they got to play those teams 6 times. But I just think with Mike Tomlin, their elite defense, and I think they'll have an improvement at QB, whether Russell Wilson sticks with the starting job or it becomes Justin Fields. I think both would be an upgrade over Mason Rudolph. So I think the Steelers that found a way to win 10 games last year will find a way to get over that 8.5. I think they could win 9 to maybe 10, 11 games. I think they could be in the playoff conversation. So I'm going to go with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin's consistent floor. I'm going to go over the 8.5. The reigning NFC champions, the San Francisco 49ers, and again, I think Vegas insiders, some of their over-unders are a little strict. I mean, the 49ers 10.5, I'll take that over. I mean, Brock Purdy, terrific quarterback. I mean, this team, I know the whole thing with Brandon Ayuk and the trade request, but at the end of the day, you're talking about a terrific offense, elite defense, and a team that has one of the best floors. You know the 49ers are going to be a really, really good team. I think they definitely go over the 10.5, and they go right back into championship contention in 2024, just like the last handful of years. So the Seattle Seahawks are at 6.5 over under with new head coach Mike Macdonald. I think he'll help their defense a lot. I think their defense will make improvements. I like the receiving core around Geno Smith a lot. The continuity of DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had a great year last year, I think, as a rookie. That's a really good trio. I think the Seahawks will be a solid team this year. I don't know about like a playoff team, but I think they'll win 7, 8, 9 games possibly. I'm going to go over that 6.5. I think the Seahawks get at least 7 wins in 2024. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 6.5 wins. I mean, that I'm going to go over again. Over again because last year they won the division, albeit 9-8, but Baker Mayfield had an awesome bounce back year. They lost their coach Dave Canales, but still, I think Baker, the continuity with Mike Evans, I think that was a huge re-signing to get arguably the greatest Buccaneer of all time, or one of the greatest Bucs of all time, Mike Evans back. I think just continuity alone, Baker Mayfield building off last year, that's a solid floor. I'm going to go over on the Buccaneers, who just won the NFC South last year. So 2 teams left, the Tennessee Titans and the Washington Commanders. Titans, they won 6 games last year. They fired Mike Vrabel, which was tough news. I think the Titans are going to be in a rebuild this year. I'm going to go under on the 5.5. I think Will Levis still has potential to be a good QB, but there's still things we want to see. The addition of Calvin Ridley was really good, but they also lost the king, Derrick Henry, and just I feel like it's kind of a rebuilding situation for the Titans, so I think there's going to be some struggles this year for them. I'm going to go under on the 5.5, which brings us to the final team of the 32 on the over-unders, the Washington Commanders, with Jayden Daniels, their new first-round, second overall pick QB, of course. I think he's going to be terrific. I'm really excited about what he can do. Year one, though, do the Commanders win 6 games? I don't know. This one's tough. I'm like hovering right around there. I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to go over on the Commanders. I think they'll win like 6 games, 6, 7 games. I think they'll make improvements this year, and I think there's going to be a lot to be excited about with Jayden Daniels. So I'm excited. I think the Commanders will eventually turn the corner, and I think this year will be helpful in that direction. I think they'll make progress this year. I think they'll go over the 5.5, and the future will look a lot brighter after 2024. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for the video. Those were our over-unders for all 32 NFL teams with just over a week to go before the start of the NFL season. Cannot wait. There's nothing quite like football season. So guys, definitely comment your opinions. Let me know how you think each NFL team will do in 2024. Let me know. Love to hear your guys' opinions. Great to be back with another video, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you all in the next one.